So this is the yes. Everybody gets a job. It's not just this
Hello, graduates, friends, family, and distinguished guests. Welcome to one of the highlights, at least for me, of the school year. Women and Gender Studies graduation. My name is Celeste Montoya, and I'm an assistant professor in the Women and Gender Studies program. And today I have the privilege, something we're very cognizant of in this department, of being your Master of Ceremonies. We have what we hope will be a wonderful ceremony planned for you today. On stage with me are our faculty and lecturers. To start us off, it is my pleasure to introduce the Director of Women and Gender Studies, Professor Robert Buffington.
Thank you, Celeste. You'll see after I make my very brief remarks, if I can find them. Why we put Celeste? No?
Right there.
There it is. Okay. Why we put Celeste in charge of being an MC? Because we're a meritocracy here, so we let the people who do it best do it. Okay, so one of the things that I think you've probably already noticed sitting here in this wonderful venue is that there's a lot of benefits to having a relatively small program, especially on a big campus like this. One of those benefits is a beautiful space like this to have graduation in. And I think that's one of the sort of tangible benefits. Another, again, very tangible benefit is that having a small program, we have the privilege, to use Celeste's words, of getting to know our students, of knowing them as individuals, and that's huge for us, and it's a very, very rewarding thing. So we learn to know and appreciate you and your children and brothers and sisters. One of the things that I just wanted to mention briefly before we get on with the program is that, as you all know, we live in a world of slogans. And those slogans include things like, just do it, be all you can be. And those slogans are great because individual responsibility is a key to our success. At the same time, we don't do these things by ourselves. Every one of us in this room got where we are because a lot of other people helped us do that. It's a privilege to be able to offer help, as you know. It's a privilege and a pleasure to offer help, especially when you're offering help. My daughter's also a student here at CU, and so you're offering all kinds of help. You're offering emotional help. You're offering financial help. We're all cognizant of that. You're offering different kinds of material support. And so without the help of all of the people in this room, the help that we give each other, the help that the students give to us to make our lives meaningful, the help that you give to your family, the help your family gives to you, the help that we get from our staff, our wonderful staff who put together this event, and without their help, without the help of my fellow faculty members who kind of keep our morale up, and our students are usually not the problem. It tends to be institutional pressures, but we help support each other. We also couldn't do it again without parents, without family, without the brothers and sisters who are here, the parents who are here, and without our friends who are here to support us. We're all here thanks to someone else, and I'd like to just take this brief moment before I stop to thank everybody who helped all of us, including all of you. And okay, Celeste, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Rob, for that warm opening. Just, can you hear up in the top? Okay, all right, just want to make sure. The University of Colorado Boulder became home to one of the country's first women's studies programs in the early spring of 1974. Amidst the early activism of the second wave, its formation resulted from the tireless commitment and enthusiasm of both students and faculty. Over the years, it has grown and transformed in small and big ways. In 1989, the program found a permanent home in Cottage Number 1, an old women's dormitory that was built in 1884, where it has remained ever since. Now officially the Hazel Gates Woodruff Cottage, it is still fondly referred to as the Cottage. In the 1980s, students could focus on women's studies under the American Studies program. But it wasn't until 1998 that the program was granted its own independent major, in no small part due to the diligent activism of students and faculty. Not long afterwards, we added a graduate certificate program. The most recent change came in the program in 2006, when the Women's Studies program became the Women and Gender Studies program. This change was made to reflect the evolution of a program that now goes far beyond the traditional conceptualizations of women's issues. Under the auspices of the program, students and faculty grapple with the many intersecting forms of power and oppression, discussing inequities that we see not as the particular problems of the groups experiencing them, but salient to society as a whole. But seeing as you are all here for your graduates, who tend not to be too quiet about these issues, I'm pretty sure you've heard all of this before. Today, we have the honor of hearing from an amazing scholar, activist, and advocate on our campus, Scarlett Bowen. I now would like to invite Adriana Barsan, one of our outstanding graduating seniors, on stage to introduce our commencement speaker.
It is an honor to have Scarlett Bowen, the director of the GLBT Resource Center, speak today. Scarlett is a unique individual who leads by example while embodying what it means to be an advocate and an ally for marginalized voices. Her presence extends far beyond the GLBT Resource Center's most active members, but also to the GLBTQ members who are more shy and their fabulous peers. Many students credit Scarlett as the reason for becoming more involved in the GLBTQ community on campus, and she has inspired many more to pursue the LGBT certificate program. Scarlett has this impressive ability to build a special connection of trust with her students. She emits a positive and nurturing energy that all can learn from merely by being in her presence. She dedicates her work to bring student organizations together in collaboration on projects and events. After working as an assistant professor of English and LGBT studies at CU from 2003 to 2011, Scarlett became director of the GLBT Resource Center in January 2012. She earned her MA in English from the University of Miami and her PhD in English with a concentration in gender and sexuality studies from the University of Texas at Austin. Committed both to queer studies, scholarship, and activism, Scarlett has published a book and articles on laboring class, gender, and sexuality, female masculinity, queering heterosexuality, and women's studies on the US-Mexico border. Currently, she is completing an essay about teaching laboring class women's poetry. Her inspiring activist work includes participation in Lesbian Avengers and ACT UP and the Coalition Against Violence Toward Women and Families on the border in El Paso, Texas. Today, she also works as an advocate for issues such as gender identity, healthcare benefits, improving services for transgender survivors, and making classes at CU more inclusive, or more LGBTQ inclusive. We can all look up to Scarlett as a role model, not only for her tremendous abilities as an educator, but also as an activist and ally. It is clear to anyone who meets Scarlett how much she cares deeply for the well-being of her students and visitors at the GLBT Resource Center. Speaking on behalf of my peers, Scarlett, words cannot describe how adequately express how incredibly grateful and appreciative we are for all your hard work you have invested to CU to make a more inclusive and safe place for LGBTQ students and their allies on campus. Please help me welcome our guest speaker, Scarlett Bowen.
That was the nicest introduction I've ever had. Thank you. Thanks for making me cry before I have to talk. I am delighted to share this wonderful moment with you, graduating seniors of Women and Gender Studies. I also want to thank everyone here who supported you through your college career, friends and family members, and the faculty and staff who have been your colleagues as you've grown into feminist, queer, and critical race thinkers and leaders. As you heard, I've had a fairly recent change of direction in my career, taking on the director role of the GLBTQ Resource Center at CU. I've enjoyed it tremendously. It has enabled me to get back to my activist roots and to expand opportunities for advocacy and education throughout the university and in the community. I remember the first couple weeks of being on the job that Renee Roberts, who isn't here, but I know you all know who she is, and Carly Steffens asked to interview me for a class project on nonviolence. And they asked me about my life and how my life history had informed my social activism. You know, small stuff. I'm from New Orleans, and I developed a strong sense of class consciousness very early, being raised by a working class single mother. And I'm also very proud to say that I have survived and healed from a variety of kinds of violence in my life. And these experiences have fueled my commitment to addressing social inequalities and oppression. I left the conversation with those two thinking, wow, this job is really different from being a professor, to have those kinds of conversations. Suddenly I felt there was more room to breathe and be. And once that starts to happen, you begin to wonder, how did I ever go without oxygen for so long? And you start to crave that feeling of expansion and wholeness, just as naturally as seeking more and fresher air to breathe. So thank you for giving me more room to breathe. It's a feeling that I believe a strong feminist community provides, and it is essential. There is so much misunderstanding about feminism, and I still have people ask me about why we have to study and talk about so many isms: sexism, imperialism, heterosexism, cissexism, elitism, racism, ableism. And of course I explain, as you all know how to do now very expertly, that we can't change these structures of inequality unless we learn to name them and describe them and point them out. But something I think we talk less about is the important work that naming provides us internally. Because no matter how educated we are about how power works in society and between people, there are still times when we forget and we think that it's us who are broken. And that's when you need your feminist cohort to swoop in and pry the stealthy tentacles of those isms off your heart and mind. And when we do that for each other, it is no less than life and soul saving. I am eternally grateful for the support of the queer and feminist community that I have sustained over the years, many of them sitting on this stage. And I'm so happy that you've had the opportunity to cultivate that community as you embark on your next phase of life. I also want to take a moment to pay tribute to the intellectual diversity of your training as women and gender studies majors, especially as there's been a lot of interest about intellectual diversity at CU Boulder recently. You've been reading the Daily Camera. The Regents are really fascinated by it. As WGS students, here's my message to them. You have learned a plethora of approaches to thinking. You can assess the differences between liberal, radical, and conservative approaches to social change. You know the difference between assimilationist strategies and resistant ones. In your classrooms, essays, exams, internships, fieldwork, and demonstrations, you learn to work through your own positionality, your intentions to do good work and to offer solutions, but also to anticipate unintended impacts you may have on other people. And there are many other people to consider. It can be done, and it can be done right, as is evidenced by the recent passage of the Violence Against Women Act with its new provisions for Native American women's sovereignty, LGBT rights, and immigrant rights. But such a conscientious way of working is not fast, and it is not efficient. It is slow and a painstaking, critical process. It is supremely creative, and it is emotional, especially when you learn that your words or actions have inadvertently excluded or hurt someone. More and more, I hope that we can collectively push back against the pressures for speed, for productivity and output, so that more areas of our society, especially the work world, can learn to value this ethic of care that we as feminists bring to every dimension of our lives, whether it is teaching a class, writing an op-ed, or just being a friend. I know, for example, that you will be there to ensure that everyone at a meeting has gotten a chance to voice their thoughts. I know you will be there to educate parents about why a transgender child is entitled to use a particular restroom. I know you will be there to ensure an artist's work is not censored simply because it contains a picture of a vagina. Which, yes, that did just happen on our campus. Where is Pussy Riot when you need them? Oh. You're in a work camp. Damn. And I know that you will be there to help a survivor of assault regain their sense of dignity and control so they are not re-victimized. If we can rally behind the slow food movement, so popular in Boulder, then surely we can support a slow, multifaceted, critical movement to enable us to attend to people's well-being in a richer, fuller way. Having an ethics of care in all that we do does not mean that we don't make mistakes, but it does change how we think about mistakes. One of my favorite quotations is from Joseph Litvak on queer activism. He says, "A lot of queer energy goes into practices aimed at taking the terror out of error." I love that. Take the terror out of error and making the making of mistakes sexy, creative, even cognitively powerful. When I came out in the early 90s, we were in the middle of the AIDS epidemic, and the only way to get people's attention and break through their terror was to jar their expectations about what a demonstration was. So you had lesbian Avengers dressing in capes and teaching each other how to eat fire. I leaned more towards kiss-ins, personally. ACT UP demonstrators showed up at baseball games and held up signs in the stadium that said, "No glove, no love." There are so many options for making change, and the beauty is that you get to choose what works for you and what works in that situation. Chela Sandoval has called this differential consciousness. Will your resistance take the form of Pussy Riot's guerrilla punk music performances in hallowed institutions such as the Orthodox Church? Will you become a CEO and encourage women to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg has done? Or will you take the approach of Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who felt herself more a mediator than a crusader? She says her strengths were reasoning, crafting compromises, finding the good and the good faith on both sides of an argument, and using that to build a bridge. However you choose to intervene for social justice, it will be powerful, it will be meaningful, and it will sustain you and your community. Some of you were at Lavender graduation a couple of days ago, and I'll share with you a couple of things that people mentioned to me there. One comment was a parent who gazed at the crowd of graduates and said, in awe and excitement, "We are looking at the new face of civil rights." And the other was our keynote speaker, Nicole Garcia, who said, "Social change can wait a bit. Today is about you and all you've achieved, and it's time to celebrate." Congratulations to you all.
Thank you, Scarlett. Your work for our program and on the campus more broadly is truly appreciated by the students, faculty, and staff in Women and Gender Studies. Your tenacity in the face of adversity and passion for social justice is an inspiration to us all. Now, to represent our seniors, we have 3 student speakers today. While this may seem like a lot, it's only appropriate seeing as each of our students truly adds a unique voice and perspective to our program. Don't worry, they've promised to keep it short in order to share the space other programs might allocate to only one student. I have had the opportunity to work with each of these women, within and sometimes outside the classroom, on academics and in advocacy. It's a little bittersweet to see them graduate today because I have learned as much from them as I hope that they have learned from me. The ordering is a little different from what is listed in the program because we like to shake things up here. So first up is Mira.
Hi everyone. It's crazy to think that we are graduating today. And I know that today especially, like me, as women's studies majors and minors, you have all been asked several times, what good is a degree in women's studies? What can you actually do with it? What does it mean? And I know, like me, many of you have sighed inwardly and outwardly and stumbled around trying to explain all the nuanced, intricately intersectional issues and ideas you have learned over the past several years and how you could apply that knowledge to becoming a lawyer. how he could use this knowledge to go into medical school, become a teacher, a social worker, and anything. You have reassured friends and family members that your degree does in fact have worth, because there are in fact ways for you to get paid for it. But I know that for me, as well as for many of you, women's studies is important and useful simply in what you learn and in what it makes you realize. Throughout the classes I have taken within this major, I realized, for instance, how much I cannot stand it when women are depicted as some sort of good only provided for men to consume. Even more so, how to be that good or item men want, women are made to feel inferior if they don't look like the airbrushed models depicted in the magazines, the TV shows, the billboards. They're pretty much everywhere. My classes made me see how racism still exists in our so-called post-race society. The election of Barack Obama did not heal all. They also made me see just how deeply race connects to gender, class, sex, and how all of this affects actual people's experiences, hopes, and potential. Women's studies made me realize why I've always hated being called a bitch, why I've always loved shows that depict strong, brave females, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Xena Warrior Princess, and of course for me, Gilmore Girls. It has also made me realize why I cannot stand it when I see my sister or my friends get hurt by a boyfriend or feel betrayed, made to feel like they did something wrong. That there is a reason why this always seems to happen to women more so than men, why men so often have the power and why women are so often left feeling empty. I consider myself a feminist for all of these reasons and realizations, but I don't burn my bras, I don't shave my head. I like wearing dresses and I love glitter, and that is okay too. Anyone can be a feminist, someone who supports and believes in social justice and equality. And when I am called upon to answer the question, why women's studies, I think to myself, because it enabled me to think critically upon who I am and where I stand. It enabled me to understand and embrace people who others in our society fear and label as too different. It taught me to understand and appreciate why I've always thought difference was so beautiful. Women's studies made me realize how inequalities not only staunch and oppress those deemed other, but also minimizes and grades the lives of the rest of us normal people as well. So when people ask, why women's studies, I will answer, because it makes us more aware, because it makes us smarter, because it makes us stronger, and because it makes us better. And in a world where 1 in 3 people of color can expect to go to prison in their lifetime, in a world where 1 in 4 women will experience violence, torment, abuse by the hands of the person they call lover, in a world where women try to look like mannequins and are treated as such, in a world where the word fag is still used to punish how someone loves another person, I'd say why women's studies is a pretty obvious answer. Instead, we should be asking why everyone else hasn't taken it yet. Thank you so much, and good luck to all of you.
Next up, Kathy Gonzalez.
When I first enrolled at CU Boulder, I had one goal in mind: to become an authority on human trafficking and to one day develop a solution to eradicate this crime completely. I had a variety of majors to choose from that could have helped me accomplish my goal: political science, international affairs, etc., but none of them focus on intersecting inequalities and marginalizations in the same way that Women's Gender Studies program does. It was in this program that I learned about intersectionality, top-down solutions that are really not solutions at all, and a myriad of other academic tools that have been invaluable towards meeting my dream. I also had the privilege to write an honors thesis in sociology, and I incorporated knowledge from almost every women's gender studies class I've ever taken. In this, I analyzed the social factors of racism, classism, sexism, and the constant need to create token victims as hindering the anti-trafficking agenda I once so loved. From my esteemed professors, I learned that all inequalities intersect and reinforce each other in some way, such as the gender roles we were all taught during our development in this world has racist and classist ideals inside of them. In writing my thesis, I found that there is an iconic trafficking victim that is created and policed by this gender role. The perfect victim must be a young girl from a nice middle-class family and white for a domestic victim. For the international victim, she must be from a country with extreme poverty or is considered oppressive to women because their culture holds on to traditional roles for women and girls to fill. These extreme dichotomies do not describe all human trafficking situations, and they also create a sort of blind spot for how marginalized communities, such as women, are treated and degraded here in the United States. We need to improve how we interact with each other and what any advocacy cause considers to be help, and how we construct who is a victim and how it reflects our own prejudice and ignorance. As it stands, the anti-trafficking agenda is top-down, meaning that a small but powerful set of individuals can dictate how trafficking in human beings can be eliminated and who is allowed to be a credible anti-trafficking advocate. This approach has terrible repercussions on traffic victims who do not fit the desired victimization the elite minority has created. These victims are ignored, ridiculed, and are sometimes labeled as criminals. They are the agricultural laborers who are seen as complaining illegal immigrants, the domestic workers who are imprisoned inside posh mansions, and sex workers who are being exploited and abused on every societal level, from the ground of fellow human beings to higher positions such as corrupt law enforcement and politicians. Yet the anti-trafficking agenda as it currently stands remains ignorant to this, sometimes reveling in this ignorance. Problem was, I lacked the necessary knowledge to properly address the faults in this cause I so love. Around 2 years ago, I enrolled in a course called Gender Policy and Global Activism taught by Dr. Montoya, and it was in this course that I finally attained aforementioned necessary knowledge. In this class, I learned how activism and politics can communicate with each other, their respective weaknesses and strengths, and what true equality activism should look like. True activism should incorporate all perspectives from all disenfranchised communities and should look to build alliances with other progressive coalitions. Here was the argument I made in support of my thesis. The domestic efforts to eradicate human trafficking needs to include more grassroots activist coalitions and instead of being seen as a purely criminal or legal issue. Grassroots activism is considerably more intersectional than governmental efforts, and the negative repercussions are usually better seen and understood by the on-the-ground and impersonal coalitions. They are better equipped to address the social inequalities that the anti-trafficking agenda only serves to reinforce. This conceptualization of my argument would not have been possible in any other majors most other anti-trafficking advocates enroll in. Declaring a major in women and gender studies has been one of the best decisions I have ever made. Not only was I given an exemplary education, I met and became close to a number of professors. I have been fortunate to form relationships with professors who have written letters of recommendations for me, championed me for scholarships, and have taken time out of their busy schedules to listen to my insecurities, difficulties, and who have somehow been kind enough to put their faith in me and my ambitions. These professors have become mentors, teaching me above and beyond what one learns in the classroom, and expanding on topics and complexities most other majors barely glance at. These classes in this department have expanded my previously singular academic interests. I have studied genocide, global social movements, and now understand how cruelty and inequality relates to trafficking. And of course, I could not have made it to this point without the support of my fellow women and gender studies majors and friends. We have fussed over tough midterms and finals, laughed at ridiculous comedy movies, and have educated one another in our respective specialties. I have learned as much from my classmates as I have from my professors. We have created this supportive and challenging environment that celebrates our differences and encourages us to reach beyond what we think we are capable of. This would not have happened in any other department or program, and for that I thank you, Women in Gender Studies. I thank you for existing here at CU. I thank you for attracting such wonderful professors, staff, and students. To my professors, I say each of you has my eternal gratitude and affection. And to my fellow graduates, current and future students, I thank you as well. We are all the future of women in gender studies, and we will make it bright and inspiring. So thank you.
And our final speaker is Tessa Williams.
Okay, so my speech does not have a title, but it does have a dedication, and I would like to dedicate this to all of my fellow life learners. I can remember getting tucked into my big girl bed at night, saying to my parents in a sweet little voice, "Tell me more of those feisty women's stories." Eyes wide with the enamored eagerness of a little girl with a dream in her head of joining the ranks of my ancestors, to venture down a path of self-discovery that would one day lead me to earn the title woman. I can remember lying awake at night years later, tossing and turning, propelled by the forces pushing and pulling me back and forth between believing the hype, the lie, disguised behind the guise of innate truth that my value was contingent on a superficial beauty or my ability to fake such, and a feeling in the core of my being, a core with roots reaching back to those feisty women, that there must be more to it than that. I can remember sneaking out of bed in the late summer night, searching the internet for something deeper than the superficial worlds I had seen on TV, something recognizable as human, something tangible, something that was bigger than all this. I can remember being told by my middle school advisor that in my searching, I was doing big work. The work that comes from questioning conventional wisdom, from pursuing the search for something to satisfy a ravenous appetite for something meaningful, substantial, real. Something that would fill you up to the point of being whole again, creating a place where you don't have to piece yourself out, presenting only parts of you to the world at a time while trying to hide the bits which you have been told weren't pretty enough, or cool enough, or good enough. When what they really meant was that they weren't palatable enough. A palatability that was based on the lies they had been told. Lies we then forgot we told to ourselves. It was during this time in my life that I discovered the power of community, the profound paradigm shift that comes from realizing that we all have something to contribute, that we all play a role in making this world what it is, and that we are therefore all critical components of something that we create and which in turn creates us. We all come from different places, different histories, communities, and locations. But we stand before you today, bound together by our insatiable hunger for something greater. We are connected by a true understanding of what Ms. Maya Angelou meant when she said, "I know why the caged bird sings." And we are entwined by our willingness to do that big work. We are confederated together in the community that we have created. None of our experiences would have been the same if a single one of us had been missing. I have learned so much from you all. I have been deeply moved by your courage to stand up and express your convictions, so moved that it has on many occasions manifested itself in an act of uncontainable self-expression as goosebumps on my skin. We are drawn together by the sharing of common experience, by the late-night study sessions, by vagina monologues, by screenings of films such as Misrepresentation. We are connected by the countless invaluable discussions, by the sharing of TED Talks, the retelling of individual moments of personal growth, by our learning to confront injustice like a boss, and by aha moments which acted like a contagion, spreading its spots to our minds, forever imprinting on our understandings of ourselves. We have shared in moments of rage and frustration, of awkward silences and despair, in moments of unwavering solidarity, of enlightenment and deep confusion. We have been there for it all. And it is this that I find to be most profound. In the face of all of the injustices, torments, acts of terror, and judgments, you have not receded. We have not given up. We have never thrown in the towel. Even when it seemed that the problems were insurmountable, we still showed up to class, looking to arm ourselves with the knowledge and strength that comes from opening your arms, from letting others in, from recognizing that difference is what makes us, not what breaks us. In the face of all that is wrong in the world, you had the strength to see through the facade of black and white, of a presentation that things are perfect, that is until you read the caveat stating, if you play by the rules. You dare to dive into the murky waters of the gray area, knowing full well that what you will find will not always be pretty or neat, but it will be real. And that dealing with the real is more productive, more enlightening, more challenging to our ever-growing analytical minds than remaining on the surface could ever hope to be. And that courage, that gumption, that gall, not only to jump in but to stay in, is nothing short of incredible. E.E. Cummings once said, "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you somebody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight." Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to some of the fiercest warriors to ever walk across this campus. Society may try to tell us that these diplomas are what qualifies us, what gives us a value in the real world. But as women and gender studies students, Not only do we know better than to believe this, but we can analyze our way up, down, around, and through the complex constructions that actualize this notion. In our education here, we have gained a deep understanding that we are greater than a tick in a box or a series of numbers with a pipe dream of identifying who we are. We know that our value extends beyond grades on an exam, that the culmination of the heartfelt words we wrote in countless papers or spoke in classes are so much more representative of who we are and, more importantly, who we are becoming. We know that these are the moments we will look back on one day and say, I can remember. We know that this multiplicity of experiences have allowed us to pull out and assemble the pieces that fit into our whole selves. They have become a part of us and will be with us no matter what path we walk after we walk across this stage today. You all give me hope. I feel better about being alive on this earth knowing that you are here standing next to me. In the face of all that is against us, you have not backed down as the incredibly powerful agents of change that you are. In spite of all the hatred, injustice, and corruption in the world, you are all here because you can envision something better. This is why women in gender studies, and this is why I believe with every fiber of my being that together, one day, we will do something so magnificent, the entire universe will get goosebumps.
And that's why this is my favorite day. Thank you, ladies. Now we're going to move on to the awards section. The Women in Gender Studies program has several scholarships and awards, and it is with great enthusiasm that I announce the recipients. Full descriptions of each award are found on the last page of your programs. As a member of the award committee for the past several years, I can attest that our pool of applicants is always strong. So making decisions are a little difficult, and it was no different this year, which is certainly a testament to the excellence of today's recipients. Handing out the awards is Professor Robert Buffington, chair of the program and member of the selection committee. So all students today, when you're getting your awards or your degrees, please come up on this side, cross the stage, and then go down that way, and we'll take a picture of you. The first award that we are going to hand out today is the Susanna Chase Memorial Scholarship. This scholarship is dedicated to the memory of Susanna Chase, a CU student who loves studying the issues of women and gender. This award is given to a student who exhibits strong academic achievement and shows a similar commitment to that of Susanna Chase to the study of women and gender. Before we announce this year's winner, I want to take a moment to acknowledge last year's recipient, who was unable to attend last year's ceremony because she was in Belgrade completing a study. Intense sincerity. She is a diligent student and a seemingly tireless advocate on campus and in the community. She has served as diversity mentor in the Hallett Hall Social Justice Program. She is the outreach coordinator of the Women's Resource Center. She served as representative of the CU campus and the GLBTQ Resource Center at the Creating Change Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. And she is an active member of the Women in Gender Studies Leadership Program, the Gender Justice League. These are just a few of the organizations Sophia has taken part in, and it is not only her activism within them that makes her a great candidate for this award, but it is also her everyday acts of courage and activism. It is in the way she speaks up for herself and others, and it is the care, compassion, and encouragement she provides to those around her. Next, we have the Jean Dabowski Scholarship, given in honor of the first woman to serve on the Colorado Supreme Court and a Boulder attorney who has worked tirelessly on civil rights issues. Jean is here with us today, and we thank you for taking part in this program. This award is given to a women and gender studies major and is based on academic record, education and career goals, community and campus service, and a demonstrated commitment to raising awareness of and combating oppression in all of its forms. This year, we had such an extraordinary applicant pool that we decided to give 2 awards. The first award goes to Cameron Elder. In addition to his excellent academic work in the classroom, Cameron is an active advocate for gender equality on campus and in the community. He is a member of the Women and Gender Studies Leadership Practicum of the Gender Justice League and the co-president of the Women and Gender Studies Honor Society, Iota, Iota, Iota. He is an intern for the YWCA, where this summer he will be teaching writing to underprivileged youth. Next year, he's going to join the staff of the Women's Resource Center. Congratulations. Our second recipient is Katie Rates. Katie is a force of nature. In addition to having one of the highest GPAs in our department, she's an extremely active on campus and in the community. She is a member of CU's mock trial traveling team, a member of the Service Fraternity Alpha Phi Omega, and a campus intern for NARAL, where she is coordinated with Advocates for Choice and the Planned Parenthood. She is conscientious about intersectional issues and has participated in advocacy and training efforts to address discrimination against LGBTQ community and those in marginalized racial and ethnic communities. We look forward to hearing more about the achievements of these scholarship recipients as they complete their studies at CU in coming semesters. Last, but certainly not least, is the Joanne Easley Arnold Outstanding Senior Award, an award named in honor of a professor emerita of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Colorado Boulder for her long-term support of the Women and Gender Studies program. We are so glad to have Dr. Arnold here with us today. This award, now being given for only the second time, is given to a graduating Women and Gender Studies major to recognize them for outstanding leadership and service to women and gender studies specifically. It is to be awarded to someone that the faculty and staff had admired for their commitment of the program and for whom there may not have yet been formal recognition in the form of our scholarships or award nominations. Like the scholarships, it is a difficult award to give, and we kind of decided that there were 2 women that we wanted to honor this year for that. This year, the first student was a bit of a latecomer to women and gender studies, although a lot of them are. She came to us in part out of frustration with what she saw as a gap in her college experience in one of the more traditional majors on campus. This year, she threw herself into the major, taking a full course load of women and gender studies classes, joining the Student Leadership Practicum, and playing an important leadership award in her group project for the senior colloquium. This year, even more this semester, I've seen this soft-spoken person go out of her way, and maybe even out of her comfort zone, to promote the program and the issues important to the members of it. With her quiet determination and earnestness, Cece Claridge has earned the respect of all of us who have gotten to know her. The second recipient is also one of those leaders that you almost don't recognize as such, although I'd say today that has changed, because she leads usually in quiet ways. By listening with an open mind, by reaching out with compassion, with enthusiasm, with creativity, and with determination of skill when needed. She leads by example, and she leads with her heart. She has done a lot for this department, especially this past year, and more importantly for the people in it, perhaps in ways she doesn't even notice. We will greatly miss her smiling face in the cottage. The second awardee is Tessa Williams. moment that many of you have all been patiently, or maybe not so patiently, waiting for, the presentation of our graduates. We will start with our graduate certificates. The Graduate Certificate in Women and Gender Studies is designed as a complement to a graduate disciplinary program. It provides graduate students with the opportunity to think in an interdisciplinary fashion about women and gender, and to learn from a variety of scholarly and methodological approaches. Students in this program come from a wide array of disciplines, including but not limited to dance, theater, sociology, political science, communication, journalism, environmental studies, philosophy, and religious studies. Today, we have several of our graduate certificates here to participate in the ceremony. Please come up to the stage as I read your name. Presenting the students with their graduate certificates is Professor Allison Jagger. Julia Gibson. Julia is completing her MA in philosophy this semester with her thesis Living Together in Communal Ecodependence, an animated approach to interspecies politics. Julia says, pursuing a graduate certificate in women and gender studies enabled me to be much more intentional about my methodological choices with regards to the ways in which I went about reframing the concept of community, and to the ends I did so. Christina Gioletti. Christina is receiving her MFA this semester from the Department of Theater and Dance. The title of her thesis is Unwrap: Undoing Writing, Research, and Performance. She says, the classes I took as part of the Women and Gender Studies certificate have been instrumental in considering dance and curatorial practices in a new and more aware manner. I realized the moving body can be seen as a discursive field where gender, race, class, abilities, age, and sexuality play a very important role. Catherine Kidd. Catherine is receiving her MA in English Literature this semester from the Department of English, focusing on representations of the body and desire in contemporary experimental literature. She is going on to a PhD program in Women's Studies in English at the University of Michigan, and says this about her experience in our certificate program. My understanding of feminist theories and methodologies imbues my work with a conscientious and rigorous consideration of my own positionality and stakes in my research, as well as the political and ethical dimensions of my work and scholarship in general. Daniel Look. Daniel is currently working on his PhD in philosophy. His dissertation is titled, The Study of Moral Revolutions as Moral Methodology. He says, the Women and Gender Studies graduate certificate has introduced me to ideas I would have never encountered in my department, helped me rethink what I had already studied, and most importantly, has shown me that feminist concerns are central and not marginal to any inquiry into social justice. Now we move to our undergraduates. If you are following along in your program, you'll notice that there are some names that we will not read off. Some of our graduates are participating in other graduations with conflicting times and are either unable to attend or may interlate and out of order. Just another example of how intersectionality is difficult spatially as well as theoretically. We will start with our minors. To earn a Women and Gender Studies minor, you must take a minimum of 21 hours of Women and Gender Studies classes. As our students will attest, these are not easy classes. They challenge students to think critically, locally as well as globally, and across intersections of race, ethnicity, class, and sexuality. Students, as I start to read your names, please come up the stairs to receive your certificates. For each student, I will be reading a brief statement that they have written. That's my disclaimer. Presenting the certificates is visiting Professor Dr. Katie Oliviero. Letitia Martinez. Letitia is graduating cum laude in psychology with a minor in women and gender studies. She is a member of the Triota Honor Society. She feels that the Women and Gender Studies program here at CU has prepared her for her journey after graduation. She plans to pursue clinical psychology and will focus her interest in women's mental health. Rebecca Powell. Becky is graduating with her bachelor's in anthropology and a minor in women and gender studies. Her experience at CU wouldn't be the same without the wonderful staff and faculty of the anthropology department and the amazing folks at the Women's Resource Center. She's not sure what her next step in life will be, but she's sure that it will be something wonderful. Claire Sumner. Claire is graduating with a degree in psychology. Her future plans include continuing to volunteer at Mesa, moving to end sexual assault, and also catching up on some much-deserved reading. Other than that, she's not totally sure, but promises it'll be awesome. I'd like to thank her mom and dad for their love and support throughout the years and for raising her to be a feminist. And now for our majors. To earn a major in Women and Gender Studies, students must complete a minimum of 36 credit hours. Our majors take several required classes, including the Senior Colloquium, where they are given the opportunity to put what they have learned in the classroom into practice. The theme of this year's colloquium, if you haven't guessed yet, is Why Women and Gender Studies? A question that students and the faculty are asked more often than we care to account. This involves learning about the history and critiques of women and gender studies on this campus and more broadly, and about the methodologies of the field, and about different forms of activism. The students were then charged with constructing an action-oriented project that dealt with this question. Despite the many challenges that they faced in their different endeavors, I think that they have each made an important contribution to the department with their work. One group collected interviews from faculty, students, and alums for their program and created an interactive website with the videos. We hope to get the final bugs out and have that up on our website this summer. Another group held a networking event with local NGOs for students to discuss internships and also initiated a letter writing campaign to raise money for the Student Professional Development Fund. You can find where to donate on that on our website. Another group conducted an innovative publicity campaign with local coffee shops to raise awareness about the program. One group held a social justice summit with like-minded organizations on and off campus. And another group created a community interactive art project asking people when they feel empowered or disempowered. The permanent installation of which will likely be hung in the cottage. This is a bright group of students who I expect to do amazing things. It is an honor as well as a great privilege to introduce our graduating seniors, earning a major in Women and Gender Studies. Presenting their degrees are professors Emmanuel DeVee, Deepti Misri, and Janet Jacobs. Alyssa Anton. Alyssa is planning on taking a year off from school to work as an intern in Washington, D.C., addressing public health issues. After that, she plans on going to graduate school to get her master's degree in maternal and child health care. Women and Gender Studies has been a great tool for Alyssa to study her passion of women's health and the disparities healthcare is plagued with. Adriana Barcelona. Adriana would like to thank her family, friends, classmates, and professors, specifically the Women and Gender Studies faculty and staff, Professor Rowland, and those she traveled with to Cuba, for all the support, inspiration, and opportunities they have provided over the years. In the future, she intends to go to medical school. In the meantime, she will continue to work at Attention Homes, a nonprofit in Boulder, and pursue her doula training. Caitlin Gabriela Carranza. Kat is excited to be graduating with a double degree in Women and Gender Studies and Anthropology. She would like to thank her family for everything they've done over the years. She would not be here or have made it through the difficult times without their continued support and love guiding her.
We love you, babe.
Cece Claridge. Cece majored in political science for 3 years before discovering that she would major in women and gender studies in her last year. These majors have been complementary for her, with political science allowing her the opportunity to do research on school boards with a professor and gaining a Euro grant, while women and gender studies has increased her involvement in student groups and political activism. She hopes to pursue a life filled with feminist activism and to continue her favorite hobby, climbing. She wants to thank her family, Bob, Ursula, and Kay, for being there for her when things got rough. She also wants to thank her favorite belayer, I'm saying that wrong, Steely, for always catching her when she falls, and a thanks to Lucy for being such a wonderful mentor. She would also like to thank every women and gender studies professor she has had at CU for tirelessly teaching her the language of self-empowerment. Cassie Gonzalez. Cassie is graduating magna cum laude in sociology with a thesis on the need for intersectional preventative measures to combat domestic human trafficking. She will be heading to San Francisco State University for a master's program in women and gender studies and will be expanding on her undergraduate thesis work. Cassie would like to thank her friends and family, particularly Mama and Daddy, for supporting and encouraging her to pursue her dreams and passions. Megan Maddox. Maggie has spent her time at CU as an activist, leading student groups like Amnesty International CU and Advocates for Choice, and volunteering with the Women's Resource Center and the Student Worker Alliance program. She studied abroad in Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic, where she interned for local feminist organizations, and she plans to return after graduation. She is the recipient of the Jean Dubofsky Scholarship and the Van Eck Award, which she doesn't say, but I'll say is one of the most prestigious awards on this campus. And she wants to thank her family for all of their love, support, and laughter. Crystal Marshall. Crystal is graduating with a double major in Women and Gender Studies and Political Science, with a certificate in Peace and Conflict Studies. She's preparing to take the LSAT and plans on attending law school in the fall of 2014. She would like to thank her mom, Maggie, for everything she's done these past 4 years, for always being there and making sure her experience at CU was nothing short of amazing. Candace Mashburn. Candace came to Women and Gender Studies from engineering 2 years ago. She was recently nominated for Volunteer of the Month as the Safe House and will become a team captain for their DART Domestic Abuse Response Team this summer. She's pretty expert at nail art, riding bikes, and being positive. And she says, so it must be true, unicorns are real. Elise Madison. Elise is graduating with a degree in psychology and women and gender studies and was awarded magna cum laude for her honors thesis in women and gender studies entitled Taking the Pulse, Feminist Activists in Belgrade, which included research for a semester abroad in the Balkans. In 2012, she was awarded the Susanna Chase Memorial Scholarship. She participated in the Kittredge Honors Program and shouted at big tall men as a coxswain for the University of Colorado men's rowing team for her first 2 years at CU. Elise plans to satisfy her wanderlust by traveling to Columbia in July for 7 weeks, after which she will begin working for Friends of the Children in Seattle through a year-long service program. Elise would like to wholeheartedly thank everyone from her extensive family for their support during this long journey, biological or not, professional, academic, and everyone in between. Spivak. Kylie is graduating with a triple major in psychology, sociology, and women and gender studies. She would like to thank her amazing father, Randy Spivak, for all of his support and financial contributions that have helped make her college career so wonderful. Woohoo! She did it! Lindsay Tagg. Lindsay is graduating with honors and triple majors in economics, political science, and women and gender studies. We have a lot of overachievers here. Her honors thesis focus is the application of international relations and security theories to a feminist construction of the U.S. emergency management sector. Her future plans include ruling the world with her twin sister. She is blessed to have the unconditional support and love of her family and friends, and she could not be the person she is today without them. Elise says, in quotes, "Don't live down to expectations. Go and do something remarkable. Graduation is not the end, it's the beginning." So she thanks the two most amazing women in her life for leading the way. She adores you both. Emily Wesley. Emily has absolutely loved her last 4 years at CU Boulder. She would like to thank her grandpa for inspiring her towards social change through all of those Monopoly games, Grandma Sharon for instilling a love of reading, Grandma Glenda for her love of music and singing, Frank for being her Atticus Finch, Kenny for teaching her how to put on that poker face, and her mom and dad for birthing her into this beautiful world. That's the best mother in the world sitting up there. Emily never could have done this without the support and love from all of you. Tessa Williams. Tessa proudly served as this year's co-president of Triota, the Women and Gender Studies Honor Society. She sought adventure in her junior year through a study abroad program in Germany, where she participated in an international intensive language program. She also contributed to activist projects on campus, such as Denim Days, through her allegiance to the Gender Justice League, the Women and Gender Studies Leadership Practice. Tessa would also like to give a big thanks to her moral support squad, champions of personal growth, guardians of sanity, defenders of morality, and crusaders of levity. Mira Winograd. Mira is graduating with a double major in women's studies and sociology. She is graduating summa cum laude for her thesis in sociology that explored college-age students' understanding of race through the lens of racial humor. She wants to thank her parents for all of the love and support they have given her throughout her college career. Betsy Yaden. Betsy is graduating with a double major in history and women's studies. She studied abroad in England during the spring 2012 semester, and it served to increase her desire to see the world. Whatever the future may hold for her, she hopes it will happen in as many different countries as possible. Kelsey Young. Kelsey is graduating with honors and a BA in Women and Gender Studies and Psychology. She has had an incredible college experience in which she learned some really important things from school, but a lot more about herself. Fortunate enough to have already found a full-time job, she will be sticking around in Boulder to work and apply to grad school, while making sure to get in a fair share of relaxation and hiking. Uncertain of what exactly is to come, Kelsey does know that all she really wants to do is to help others in some way. She is so thankful for her family and friends. Their support and love has been invaluable. Specifically, she would like to thank her parents for how much they have sacrificed for her. Renee Roberts. Renee is graduating magna cum laude with degrees in ethnic studies and women and gender studies, a certificate in the study and practice of leadership from the Invest Community Leadership Program, and a certificate in peace and conflict studies. She worked in the Hala Diversity Program as a resident advisor and as co-outreach coordinator for the Women's Resource Center. She served as co-chair of Queer People of Color and president of Theta Nu Xi Multicultural Sorority. She was also honored to receive the 2013 Undergraduate Equality and Excellence Award from the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Community Engagement. She would like to thank all of the incredible staff, faculty, friends, and family that have supported her along the way. Mariela Ruiz. Mariela is a Chicana native from Boulder, graduating with a double major in ethnic studies. She was honored as the Woman of Her Generation at the 90th anniversary of the YWCA of Boulder County last year. Mariela will continue working at Women's Health and spend time with her beautiful 6-month-old baby. At last we have come to the end of our ceremony. But first I would like to give a special thanks to our student volunteers and our spectacular, fabulous administrative assistants, Valerie Batt and Alicia Turchette. Valerie's here and Alicia's upstairs, so make sure to thank them in person at our reception upstairs. Now to lead the all-important moving of the rainbow tassels and to close our ceremony, I'd like to invite the 2 students graduating at the top of not only the department's graduating class, but in the top of their entire graduating class at the University of Colorado Boulder. Please welcome on stage Megan Maddock and Elise Maddow.
Let's just appreciate the difference in height. She's a little tall, she's a little short. So we've now come to the end of the ceremony. As those that have come before us and the many that will follow us, we now become graduates of the Women and Gender Studies program at CU. Please join us in moving your fabulous rainbow tassels from right to left.
Sometimes it will take a rocky path, but we know that Women in Gender Studies has given you and us a handful of tools to navigate and forge our own path.
And as Audre Lorde once said, always remember that taking care of yourself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and it's an act of political warfare. Good luck and congratulations. We've come a long way, and we surely have great adventures ahead of us.